about some historical events that happened October the 2nd. So these are historical events that happen on October the 2nd. First off, we got Nathaniel Turner, Nat Turner. Nat Turner, he rebelled against the white supremacist slave culture, right? He was reading the Bible, saw that Moses led the slaves to freedom. He says it's time for us to sing a new song. It's time for us to sing ourselves a new song. Nat Turner was born on this day, 1800. October 2nd, Southampton County, Virginia. There's a whole bunch of things here that I've listed, and I'm just going to go in no particular order, okay? So we'll start with George Washington. In 1789, October 2nd, the Bill of Rights was sent out by George Washington to the states in order for the states to ratify it. So Congress had passed it, but 2/3 of Congress. In order to add an amendment to the Constitution, you need 2/3 of Congress, and then you need 3/4 of the states. So 1789, 1791, Vermont became a state, the 14th state, 1791. I want to say they got 11 states. They didn't get all 13 or 14 states at the time to ratify the Bill of Rights, but once they got 11 states to ratify the Bill of Rights, the Constitution just was written in 1788, and then the Bill of Rights was added 1791, just a few years afterwards. So when people talk about the Constitution, they're not just talking about the body of the Constitution, but they're also talking about the preamble and the amendments. So that's exciting. October 2nd, 1789, George Washington says, hey, let's have a Bill of Rights, huh? Let's do a Bill of Rights, America. Are you down with a Bill of Rights? You got the freedom to speak, the freedom to petition, the right to bear arms in defense of home, person, and property. Of course, you have a right to defend yourself, but you also have a right to bear arms when you're part of a militia, to kick soldiers out of your home who wants to quarter, the freedom to be, the cruel and unusual punishments, right to the grand jury for capital or infamous accusations. So that happened on October 2nd, 1789. Woodrow Wilson is going to suffer a stroke. Woodrow Wilson is going to suffer a stroke on October 2nd, whenever he did that, whatever the year was. This is significant to think about the secession. Before, the secession was only like 2 or 3 positions, but now in America it goes down to like 15 positions. But this is Woodrow Wilson, and I got the date here, 1919. So Woodrow Wilson, who was a huge racist, said that Birth of a Nation was like writing history with lightning. He's against free speech. He threw Eugene Debs in jail just for speaking out against World War I. Whole bunch of crap. He's against communism, started the first Red Scare. I'll say he started the Federal Reserve too, the income tax. They call him progressive. He invaded Mexico, he invaded Haiti. He invaded a bunch of countries too, so I don't know. I guess when they say progressive, they're saying that the government can be used to, I don't know, when the government is used, yeah, it's not laissez-faire anymore. The government could be useful in the economy, or you could use the government could be used, whatever. Okay, so Woodrow Wilson suffers a stroke. I actually want to look into that a little bit more later on. The Twilight Zone is going to premiere October 2nd. The cartoon Peanuts is also going to premiere. It debuts. Where is everybody? Rod Sterling's Twilight Zone, that was 1959. Peanuts debuts in 1950. That's Linus and Snoopy and Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football. How many times does Charlie Brown get fooled by Lucy? Groucho Marx says that TV always made him smarter, because any time anybody turned the TV on, he'd go and walk into the other room and read a book. Groucho Marx was born October 2nd. Groucho Marx, right, with the eyebrows and the funny walk, and he's got his two brothers. What year was he born? Oh, he was born in Manhattan in 1890. Here we have a picture of John Andre. John Andre was a redcoat. He was a British redcoat. He was a spy. So he's just walking around America trying to find out where the American revolutionaries were. He was a spy. And because he was a spy, well, they arrested him for treason, for spy, comfort to the enemy, something. He got hung. So that's going to happen during the American Revolution. John Andre is going to be hung for being a spy. What year did that happen? Let's see here. I got the Charles Stark Draper, a gyroscope expert, was born in 1901. Let's see here. Bill Ramsey, who discovered neon and K-R, X-E, A-R, R-N, C-A, and B. Those are elements, but boron, argon, xenon, kryptonite, I don't know what those are, but he discovered neon. So if you're like, hey, I like that neon, you should thank Bill Ramsey out of Glasgow, UK. Christian René de Duvet, biologist who discovered lysosomes. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. Are they all peace? They're not all Peace Prize, I'm sure. He was born October 2nd, 1917, but I'm looking at the date for when John Andre was hung for being a goddamn spy. That was 1780. So that was 9 years before the Bill of Rights was sent out by George Washington to the states for ratification. That was in Tappan, New York. The British spy hung by the Continental Army, John Andre. So damn, John Andre got fucking, he tried to fuck America over, right? The fucking redcoat claptrap bullshit. No, why don't you just suck King George III's dick? No, wouldn't it just be easier to have a dictatorship? Wouldn't it just be easier? Why have a constitution, a Bill of Rights, and the three branches of government? Why make it so complicated? Bill of Rights, federalism, three branches of government, the individual freedoms. Let's see here. Guinea is going to declare their independence. Where exactly is Guinea? Guinea is a country in West Africa, and they declared their independence. So, congratulations to Guinea. Their Independence Day, this work, justice, solidarity by referendum. They got their independence by referendum in 1958. There's a little picture there. Do we have a good image of Africa? It's on the west coast of Africa, right there by the Sierra Leone, Liberia, which is where the colonization or the decolonization, when Americans, instead of giving black folks freedom, they were like, why don't we just, ship them back to Africa? They did. There was a bunch of black folks that were sent to Liberia. And I'll say the capital is Monrovia or something. But this is where Guinea is, next to Mali and the Ivory Coast, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Conakry. Is that the capital of Guinea? Sierra Leone, Liberia. So, congratulations to Guinea. They have their freedom. They got their freedom. Nat Turner was like, hey, you white folks, you need to stop doing your slavery. Slavery is wrong. He actually does a large insurrection, right, where he just, the moon or the something with the, there was a, some sort of eclipse, and that was a sign from God, gathered a bunch of slaves in the neighborhood, and then they just went from plantation to plantation and freaked people out. And then eventually he's going to get caught, arrested, and then he's going to get hung as well. But because slavery was so goddamn heinous, history gives Nat Turner a pass. History gives Nat Turner a pass because when you're being oppressed so much by the entire fucking society, and then he was reading the Bible, so he was actually inspired by Christianity. And there's actually a little pamphlet. Somebody had interviewed him when he was in jail to ask him the reasons. Why did you do this, insurrection, this, I guess, rebellion? A revolution is a successful rebellion, so it's just Nat Turner's rebellion since the revolution was unsuccessful. Where does something like that stop? It's almost like when you had Talgayita in the early continental American colonial times, right before the revolution had happened. He started attacking the settlers on the East Coast, or on the West, the frontier, and just kept attacking one after another after another. Why? Because they killed his entire fucking family. They killed his whole fucking family. So this is when the British and Americans, there's Daniel Boone and some other notable, Lord Dunmore's War, Simon Girty. This is when a lot of Americans were part of the British, and then they sent out a bunch of Americans to go attack, the Talgayita. That's what Nat Turner reminds me of, just this rolling. It just seems like, I don't want to say violence for violence sake, but they didn't have a plan. They didn't have an overall, okay, then when we capture the king, we're going to make you king, and then these are the policies that we will have. The Bill of Rights, I feel like that's a good revolution to have, to fight for the Bill of Rights. We had the Revolution and the Civil War. So we've already had 2 revolutionary wars fighting for the Bill of Rights. And not all the Bill of Rights have been incorporated to the states just yet, but that's only maybe because the Supreme Court hasn't been presented with it. The 3rd Amendment, the 7th Amendment, and the grand jury clause of the 5th Amendment. So we already talked a little bit about Nat Turner, right? Nat Turner. Goodbye, Uncle Tom. It ends it off with Nat Turner. Some little soliloquy about Nat Turner. Here's Breckinridge. He's going to flee Kentucky. This is the vice president. Former American Vice President John C. Breckinridge flees Kentucky. I want to say he ran for president, lost against Lincoln, and then 1861, October 2nd, Breckinridge takes off. John C. Breckinridge flees Kentucky. So I guess he goes south, but that's his native state, right? Oh, I love the state. It's all about states' rights. Well, I'm with the Confederacy, so to hell with you, Kentucky. You're going to declare your neutrality? I'm going to fucking Mississippi then. So he left, right? That's got to suck, right? He was a presidential candidate, almost took the top seat in the country. So he was like a known, fucking powerful politician of Kentucky. He got ran out. Hayden Planetarium. I think this is a picture of some Hayden Planetarium somewhere. I don't know if this is the one that I'm thinking of. It's the 4th in the America. So you actually got 4 Hayden Space and Science Planetariums. The one in New York, the 4th in America, opens. The architect was Polshek. That happened in 1935. So I don't know if it was this one or if it was this one. I'm not for sure exactly. I like all these pictures. So one of these have got to be the Hayden Planetarium in New York. These are the coolest ones, I think. It's got that big ball, and then you got all that. Is that the ball? It just had the stone building around the ball, and then they just had alright, I don't know. But the Hayden Planetarium is going to open to the public. Now everybody can go and see the stars inside an auditorium, in case you can't just go outside at night. What's the planetarium for? Oh, it's just, okay. So the Hayden Planetarium, so that happened October 2nd, 1935. What else do we got here? The San Diego Zoo. The San Diego Zoo. It looks like they got a ton of animals. They got like a lion. I know that's a statue, but there's, lion, tigers, and bears. There's giraffes. There's a rhinoceros. Here's a little map of the San Diego Zoo. So is that some monkeys and some rhinos, giraffes, snakes, was this birds, the Asian Passage. This looks like an awesome fucking place, the San Diego Zoo. The San Diego Zoo is going to open in 1916, October 2nd. 1916, October 2nd. How exciting. October 2nd. What an incredible, my God. This is so many holidays to celebrate on October 2nd. You know, people think that there's only, like 7 holy days? All these days are holy. In 1870, they had a plebeian election. Italy is going to take over Rome. Italy is going to make Rome the capital. I mean, isn't that something? Isn't that something? It's something, that's for damn sure. Nicholas Creed. That's Bill Ramsey. I was talking about him earlier. Let's go to Nicholas Creed. Nicholas Creed, here's a picture of him. There's a couple pictures. They're all kind of tiny pictures. But Nicholas Creed, it was kind of crazy how he died and then how there was a big controversy over his estate. I don't know how rich he was, but he discovered silver mines. He discovered a whole bunch of silver mines. On October 2nd, Nick Creed had discovered a silver mine in Colorado, 1889. 1889, October 2nd. So, I mean, he didn't strike oil. He didn't find gold, but he found a bunch of silver. And there's a whole, he's got a whole life. I just thought this one little factoid here. He actually was born William Harvey. He was born William Harvey, and then he's going to change his name. 1843, changed his name when he was 27 years of age in 1870. So Nick Creed had left the army, returned to Iowa, intending to woo and wed a local girl who had caught his eye before he began his travels as a scout. But when he comes back, turns out his brother had married her and she already had a child. And so the family reconciled later on, years later, but it agitated young Billy Harvey that he changed his name to Nicholas N-I-C-C Creed, Nicholas C. Creed. And it also strengthened his resolve to become a prospector. He's going to overdose on morphine later on too, and then there's like something about just a whole bunch of, I was like looking at his legacy. I was trying to get a quick little, what's his legacy? And there's like all this, so many people had their fucking hands out. He actually gave the majority of all of his holdings to his adopted daughter Dorothy when she reached the age of 25. And then you had all these other fuckers that, wanted their money, that had their hands out. I want the silver mine money. Hey, I want that silver mine money. I didn't do nothing for it, but, I knew him. I was related to him. He was my something. He was my second cousin. My third cousin's illegitimate dog's grandpa's friend from elementary school over by Bayside. So, yeah, that's Nick Creed. Good old Nicholas Creed, huh? He discovered a silver mine, right? Let's see, what else do we have here? Bill Ramsey. We got Bill Ramsey. He discovered noble gases. How noble were they? They were very noble. It says his work in isolating argon, helium, neon, krypton, not kryptonite, krypton, xenon led to the development of a new section of the periodic table. So he created a brand new section to the periodic table. I mean, that's pretty fucking exciting. A lot of people don't even discover anything in their lives, and he discovered 7 new elements. Sir William Ramsey. He won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Okay, not the Nobel Peace Prize, but the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, in recognition of his services in the discovery of the inert gaseous elements in the air. So, good old Bill Ramsey. And that's pretty much all I got right there. I want to look more into Woodrow Wilson's stroke, right? Woodrow Wilson has a stroke. And then what had happened after that? He was in Pueblo, Colorado on tour to promote the League of Nations. He woke up with a severe headache and he was paralysis on his left side. And then he had difficulty speaking. His personal physician said he had a cerebral hemorrhage. Dr. Cary Grayson Aftermath and impact. Wilson was kept secluded in the White House for months while his wife Edith acted as his de facto president. Holy shit. Does that mean it'd be Melania if the current POTUS went through the same shit that Woodrow Wilson? It would be Melania would be our president? What kind of policies you think be best, right? Everybody would just have to be best, which isn't a bad mantra. I don't know. It's not very specific, but yeah, I guess we all could just be best. The public was initially kept in the dark about Wilson's condition. His health never fully recovered. He remained incapacitated until his death in 1924. When did this stroke? This stroke had happened. He's trying to say the League of Nations, right? It happened in 1919, so he's not going to die until 5 years later. It's a notable event in American history. It highlighted the need for a clear line of succession in event of a presidential disability. Let's see here. Human health, transparency, reminder of the challenges, medical treatments, information. So this is interesting for a bunch of reasons. Did we get the 25th Amendment after that? Well, I wonder what happened, because Edith, I don't remember learning about Edith being the, 32nd president. And of course you had the 32nd president, Edith, good old Edith Wilson, Mrs. Woodrow Wilson. So let's see here. What else? I got some more information. We need a picture of Woodrow Wilson here, right? Let's just make sure I have all the events. I got just a list here, and I want to make sure that I've mentioned all the notable things, right? And then we'll get back to Woodrow Wilson for a second. See, Hayden Science, Draper, Duvet, all the Mogden House in Amsterdam opened 1787. Groucho Marx, Twilight Zone, Lennox Lewis, TKO's Riddick Bowie in the second round, 1988. Willie Ley, Ley. He was an anti-Nazi rocket man. Willie Ley, he was born. Don't tell me there isn't anything important October 2nd, because Willie Ley, 1906, was born. Guinea Independence Day, Woodrow Wilson, Peanuts, Breckinridge, Gandhi. Gandhi was born. That's actually pretty significant historically. Gandhi is going to liberate all of India. India is the largest democracy in the world. Gandhi had liberated India from the British tyranny. So Americans should be able to understand that. They were being oppressed by the British Empire. We were being oppressed by the British Empire. They thought of all of India as one big colony, so they're just extracting all this stuff. And then Gandhi did like this strike on salt. Was he just like going to the beach and picking up salt, and he started sewing, homespun, started sewing his own clothes, and this attacked a lot of the major industries that the British Empire. The British fucking burned down our White House, so we need to cut the umbilical cord. I don't know why we're still like friendly with the fucking British, acting like they're not like plotting to take us all back over again. They did it. The War of 1812 was about them motherfuckers coming back, and they burnt down our White House. They killed Tecumseh, and then what else happened? Well, the Star Spangled Banner. But we fucking got our asses kicked. But they came back again. The fucking Brits came back again, right? They're not just going to let their goddamn progeny fucking be free and revolutionary. No, they got to come back, burn down our fucking White House, right? Fucking bastards. Let's see here. What else do we have? Let's see. Mike Myers is expelled from the U.S. Congress. That's the first since the Civil War, 1980. The RIGENDAL, a symmetric key encryption algorithm, is the AES, which is like the standard. 2000 RIGENDAEL, symmetric key encryption algorithm. Scrubs premieres 2001. Zach Braff's Scrubs premieres. That's all I got for October 2nd. So just to make sure it's comprehensive. Now let's learn more about Woodrow Wilson. I want to keep this under 30 minutes at least, right? Okay, so we actually got 5 minutes. Woodrow Wilson, let's see. What else? What else? He's going to have his stroke. 1919, he suffered a severe stroke. He was incapacitated until the end of his presidency. How long did his presidency last? Let's see here. Woodrow. How long did Woodrow Wilson's presidency last? Till 1921. So he's going to be president for 2 more years, and then he's going to die 3 years later. So Pueblo, Colorado. I wonder what's in the water in Pueblo, Colorado. It's one of the great crises in presidential succession. Edwin A. Weinstein notes that Wilson had a history of cerebrovascular disorders going back to 1896, 16 years before his presidency. Let's see here. Woodrow was a slow learner. Yeah, he was. Fucking stupid fuck. Because of the birth of a nation, the second wave of the KKK is going to fucking come back. The first wave was right after the Civil War. Then the second one was just because this fucking movie started doing motion pictures, started showing in all these theaters, and then the president fucking watched it. When the president watched it, that made it fucking popular. And the way that the story was, you had the Civil War, and then the black man started turning the white man into slaves, and started making him pick the cotton, started raping his, women and children and men, just started raping the entire, all of them, started stealing their blood, sweat, toil, and tears. Go check out Goodbye Uncle Tom. Goodbye Uncle Tom is probably one of the best movies in terms of how heinous American slavery was. Slavery, has been around like all throughout history, but American slavery was one of the worst throughout all of history. So I'm not for sure who was worse between, the Jewish folks when the Pharaoh of Egypt was oppressing the Jewish folks. That's when the Hebrews were actually sympathetic when they were being oppressed. Let my people go. Yeah, you're right. You're sitting there telling other fucking people to do your goddamn work. Fucking Egyptians. Why can't the Egyptians just goddamn pay a decent salary? How hard is it to pay a decent salary? Let's see here. We're not really focusing too much on Woodrow Wilson. Let's just take a breath and see what we could find out here. Even after the stroke of 1919, he still thought he had the vigor to serve a third term. I'm real curious about Edith. Edith is just, they're in World War I at the time, so she's just like doing battle plans and shit. He was doing a public speaking tour, suffered a collapse in Pueblo, Colorado. The presidential party returned to Washington. And then soon after, he suffered his most serious stroke. At this point, a cover-up began, led by Dr. Grayson and the president's second wife, Edith. They thought it would be best if Wilson was not informed of just how serious his condition truly was. When Dr. Grayson briefed the cabinet, the question of secession came up, but he refused to sign any official notice of disability. He also discouraged letting the public know the extent of the president's condition. Weinstein suggests this reflected Edith Wilson's opinion. Wilson was able to urge his supporters to vote against any reservations regarding the League of Nations treaty. The treaty went down to defeat. Weinstein feels that but for the stroke, Wilson might have been more willing to negotiate and come to a settlement. In his current state, he was unable to do so. The strongest candidate the Democrats could put forward for the presidency in 1920 was probably William McAdoo, who had served 6 years as Treasury Secretary, married one of Wilson's daughters. However, Wilson still hoped he could win a third term. He retired. Okay. So, what happened with Edith Wilson? I want to know that. How many presidential orders did Edith Wilson give? So according to the Google AI, she did not issue any presidential orders. After her husband, Woodrow Wilson, suffered a stroke, she took on a stewardship. She screened all communications and official matters before they reached him, controlling access. So she acted as the gatekeeper, so kind of like the chief of staff. Screening with communications and matters of state were important enough to bring to the president's attention. This made her the primary communication link between Wilson and his cabinet. While Edith Wilson denied making policy decisions, her control over the information flow gave her significant informal authority. Some historians suggest this gave her considerable influence over policy decisions. The full extent of the president's illness was concealed. In her 1939 memoir, Edith Wilson claims she only decided what was important and what was not, and when to present matters to my husband, and never made decisions on public affairs herself. Although she issued no official orders, her actions resulted in being called the presidentress by critics, as she effectively served as the acting chief executive during her husband's illness. Interesting. Huh? So there you go. There's plenty of things that have happened October 2nd that makes this day worthy of celebration. Celebrate good times. Come on! RIP to Eucalyptus, Spriggy Spriggs, and Splinter. Peace.